Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Anastasia Wakes Up, Doesn't Take a Shower, and Decides to Film a Video. So today I wanted to tell a story about my adventure moving to Washington State. So I moved to Washington State in 2004 to become a park ranger. And I was terrified, but up until that point in my life, I had never wanted anything so much in my entire life. It was the first time where I wanted something, and I knew with every fiber of my being that being a park ranger was what I wanted to do. And so I accidentally ended up moving to Washington State. That's a whole different story, which I shared in another blog post. And the academy, the law enforcement academy that I went to that year, it started on December 19th, was the very first day of class, which meant that I had to miss Christmas with my family. And this was actually the first Christmas I had ever missed with my family in my entire life. And so on December, I think 18th, maybe it was on the 19th, I flew to Washington State. And like I said, I was terrified. I was on the plane, and I had I'm a violinist, and I brought my violin on the plane because I couldn't imagine going 4 months in a police academy without having my violin with me. And a flight attendant on the plane actually saw me putting the violin into the overhead compartment, and halfway through the flight, she came up to me and said, "Hey, do you play violin?" And I said, "Yeah." And she asked me to play my violin on the plane, and I got to play Jingle Bells and Silent Night and a few more Christmas carols on a plane, and that was the start of this journey. And I got to Washington State. I flew into SeaTac, and I had brought 2 suitcases with me. One was a orange colored suitcase, so that one was pretty easy to find, and the other one was a navy blue small suitcase. And these 2 suitcases had every single thing I needed in them to essentially go to the academy. So all my clothes, my uniforms, everything. And I got to the baggage claim, and of course the orange suitcase was very easy to find, and blue suitcase, dark blue suitcase, nowhere to find. Now, I was already having what can be described as a minor breakdown because this was the first time I had ever just done anything like this. I went to college an hour and 20 minutes away from home. So I had never, while I had moved a lot as a kid, I had never just done something crazy and moved to Washington State all by myself without knowing anybody. So I was pretty shaken up at this point. So couldn't find the second suitcase. It was the one that had all of my uniforms for the academy in it, and I pretty much started to freak out. I went to the baggage claim desk, said to the guy, or I tried to explain to him that I had lost my suitcase and that I needed it, and essentially what happened is I broke down and started crying. He reassured me. He said, "Look, your bag is probably somewhere on another flight, and we'll get it to you tonight. What hotel are you staying at?" And I had made a reservation to stay at the Westin Hotel in downtown Seattle because it was close to King Street Station, or at least I could take a cab to King Street Station, and then the next day I had a plan to take the train up to Mount Vernon, where the commander of the police academy was going to pick me up. So I took this bus called the Gray Line. I took the bus to the hotel, and I check into the hotel, and the guy at the hotel says, "Well, you already have a message waiting for you from the airport, and here's a phone number, but you need to call them." So I get into my room and I call the guy from the baggage claim, and he says, "Anastasia, I am so mad at you." And I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, what did I do? And he said, "Your suitcase isn't blue, it's black." And it was on the baggage carousel the entire time. So that was, anyway, they end up delivering the bag to me, which was extremely grateful for. And I leave my room, and I'm going to go walk around Seattle for the very first time and try to find a place to get some dinner. And I walk out into the hall, and there is this tiny little maid hiding behind a door. and I could tell she's a maid because she has a little uniform on. She's wearing like a smock, and she is just literally shaking, and I am immediately wondering, okay, what the heck is going on here? And all of a sudden, from around the corner comes this massive golden lab just tearing around the corner, and the maid starts screaming, like hysterically screaming about this dog. Well, she ends up explaining to me that she had been going into a room to do a nightly turn down, and she had accidentally let the dog out of somebody's room. And she was so scared of this dog that she could not get anywhere near it. And so I said, okay, well, I'll help you get it back into the room, because obviously this is somebody's dog. So she hands me what ends up being the master key for the entire hotel. And then I said, okay, which room is it? And she points to a room, and I open the room thinking I'm going to let this dog in. And I open the room, and there's like a family sitting in the room. And here I am, like just this random hotel guest who now has just accessed this person's room. And they sort of look at me, and I said, oh, do you have a dog? And they said, no, we don't have a dog. And so now I'm just like in these people's room. And anyway, so then the maid says, oh no, it's actually this room, like one more room down. So anyway, I go into that room, and I open the door, and yes, there's a dog bowl in there. So I hope to God it was the right room, because I put the dog in there. So that happens. Then the next day, I get to Mount Vernon, or I wake up and find out that the trains have all been canceled because of landslides on the coast. And so I am no longer going to be riding a train up to Mount Vernon. I'm going to be riding a bus. So they put me in a bus, load me up to Mount Vernon. I get to Mount Vernon, and the academy commander picks me up and takes me to my dorm. Now, I had previously mailed myself a box including my bed comforter, a pot so that I could cook stuff in, and then I had also mailed myself some spaghetti sauce and some noodles, because I thought, well, I don't know if I'm going to be close enough to a grocery store. I'm not even going to have a car. I don't know how I'm going to get food. So I mailed myself all this stuff, and I have the first few days of the academy, which went great. And then we had a couple days off for Christmas, and I am completely by myself at Christmas. And I still hadn't managed to get to the grocery store. All I had was this box of noodles and a can of, or a jar of spaghetti sauce. And it was Christmas Eve, and I am by myself, and I make these noodles. Well, I didn't have a colander, so I'm trying to strain the noodles in the pot itself, holding the lid on, and I'm straining these noodles, and somehow my grip slips, and the noodles just go everywhere into the sink. And that's my Christmas dinner, in the sink. And there I am on Christmas Eve, and I'm picking up the noodles with my hand, putting them back into this bowl, trying to rinse them off, pouring this marinara, and just sitting by myself in this dorm room sobbing on Christmas Eve, because I'm wondering, what have I done? And why do I want this so much? And is this worth it? And what the heck was I thinking coming out here and to chase this silly dream of being a park ranger? And it was sort of a low point, to say the least. Nobody wants to be, I mean, I'm sure there's people who've had worse Christmas Eves, don't get me wrong, and I'm definitely not complaining, because I was at a police academy to become a park ranger, but it was just one of those moments where you look at all these things that have happened, and you're like, gosh, do I want this so badly that I'm willing to go through this stupid crap? And the answer to that was yes. And I ended up graduating the academy. Part of the way through the academy, I had to take out a loan to pay for my car loan. That was how little money I had. I took out a $3,500 loan because I realized that I didn't have enough money to buy food and I had some friends in the academy who would occasionally steal me a banana. It makes me teary-eyed thinking about it. They would occasionally steal me a banana just so that I could get through the day with some nutrition. And I was eating cans of kidney beans because I couldn't really afford anything. And it was the first time that I wanted something so bad that I was willing to do anything for it. And I just think about that now and how great that was, and to have that kind of passion in my life, and how proud I was when I finally did actually get to become a ranger, and how much more that journey meant to me because of everything that I had invested into it. I mean, all of those experiences that I had that felt like obstacles at the time. And now here I was coming out on the other side, getting commissioned as an actual park ranger. And it was so meaningful and powerful to me because of the challenge. And one of my favorite quotes of all time is by a legendary Pacific Northwest climber named Fred Beckey. And he says, and I'm going to paraphrase this, but he says that the view is different for the man who pays for beauty with the currency of toil. And it's so true. If you take a helicopter ride to the top of a mountain, yeah, it's beautiful and you're gonna love it and get some amazing pictures. But if you felt what it feels like to get out of that sleeping bag and to push yourself and to even suffer a little bit and to sacrifice things and to train hard and to do things that you know you need to do when nobody is watching you whatsoever, but you keep doing them because you know that that's what it's going to take to get you to where you want to go, whether it's standing on the top of a summit or becoming a park ranger or getting a new job or whatever it is in your life. If you have to go through that process in order for everything to make sense, in order for it to even matter. And I look at the things in my life now, and the things that matter are the ones that I've worked the hardest for. And it just, I don't know, just thinking about that this morning, it was a powerful lesson for me and a powerful reflection for me to look back and sort of pinpoint why was this so meaningful when I've had other accomplishments in my life, but they aren't as meaningful. And I think it really is the totality of that journey and what it took to get me there. And so I guess my message is that journey is worth it. So don't ever get frustrated with it and skip it, because it's a really important part of the process. If you don't do that, it's not going to matter when you get here, and you may not even get there. Here may look completely different that you envisioned it, but just going through that process and climbing and taking those steps inch by inch, doing whatever it takes and just not stopping, that is what's going to matter. And when you look back on it, those are the things you're going to remember. I mean, I loved being a park ranger, don't get me wrong, but when I think back, it's all the things that it took to get me to becoming a park ranger that are the most meaningful and the most powerful. And that's why it was such a special career for me, and remains such an important part of my identity, even though I'm no longer a park ranger. So I hope that is meaningful to you and that it sparks something in you today. And I hope you have a wonderful day. Keep on adventuring, never stop. And just keep doing what you're doing. Don't quit.